This episode was super fun to record. I just recorded it with the founders of HOL Health Club, which is a protein bar company. Mackenzie and Nolan, the founders, quit their full-time jobs in investment banking to start this protein bar company. They've officially launched this summer, and the bars can be purchased at Amazon, Walmart, a few other online retailers. I believe you should find them on their website, wholehealthclub.com. I can put the link to their website in the show notes. But yeah, I actually just went up to Mackenzie when I saw her at the West Village Farmers Market and asked her if she would be open to coming on the podcast after I saw the sign she had up saying they quit their jobs in finance to start this company. So I'm just so happy that they agreed to coming on and spent the time talking about their journey transitioning from a career in finance to starting a business. You'll hear about why they made that decision and then how they took a very initial steps of starting a business. I was saying, I feel like a lot of people have the ideas to start a business, but then have absolutely no idea where to start. So maybe this will give you some inspiration or confidence to do so if you have had some interesting ideas. I took the day off, which is so fun and random. I just took a random Thursday for PTO and it's been really nice. Often this sounds silly, but when I'm going to work in the morning and I just see people sitting in a coffee shop at 8 a.m. peacefully just on their laptops, sipping a coffee, so calm and looking of course, I don't know if they're happy, but they look like they're happy. And I'm like, wouldn't that be so nice just to have a relaxing day during the week? And so I was like, why don't you just try doing that? And so I woke up this morning and I went to coffee with a friend at 8:45 down in Soho. And then I went to a solid core workout class at 10:05 a.m. And I was like, how is this class full? Sometimes I wonder, what do you guys do? And I genuinely mean that in a not an offensive way. I'm like, what are you doing? Because I would love to have this flexibility of going to a workout class at 10:05 a.m. And then I came back and made myself lunch and just wrapped up the recording with Mackenzie and Nolan and founders of Whole Health Club. Please enjoy this episode. Please buy their protein bars. They're amazing. I've had them. I find their story so cool and relatable and inspiring. And I hope that it inspires you if you have any aspirations of becoming an entrepreneur yourself. Enjoy this episode. All right, Nolan and Mackenzie, welcome to the Make a Living podcast.
Thank you
so much for having us.
Yeah, pumped to be here.
So this is a very exciting episode. I did a poll the other day about who people want to have on, and one of the main answers was founders, and you two are both founders, young founders, and you've launched your product, which is so cool. And I want to get into how you transitioned out of your previous career path into the career path now, and how you actually launch a business, because I feel like so many people have ideas and then they're like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
But to kick it off, why don't you tell us, the podcast listeners, what you do for work currently?
Yeah. So Nolan and I are the co-founders of Whole Health Club. It is a better for you protein bar. We are the only protein bar that has 20 grams of protein and is completely natural and clean. And what we mean by that is we don't even use a protein powder in our bars. We are using chicken bone broth and peanuts as our protein source, which we are also one of the first pioneering the use of that ingredient.
Super cool. And I was just telling them, as I've tried the protein bars, they're amazing. So we'll tell you all at the end of the episode, where to find them. And the name is Whole, HOL Health, Whole Health Club. Amazing. And your website is awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
And I've seen your socials and then I've tried the bars, but the website is really well done.
You spent a bit of time on it, so thank you.
Yeah,
I'm sure. No, I want to get into that because I'm also trying to create a website. I met Mackenzie 2 weekends ago, I think. So I was walking by. I actually saw her from afar. I saw both of you maybe from afar a month ago at the West Village Farmers Market in New York City. And there was a sign that said, we quit our jobs in finance to start this protein bar company. And I was like, oh my God, I think I was maybe in an Uber. And I was like, I need to get them on the podcast. That's exactly what I want. I have told people about it. And then the next weekend I was walking by, and then maybe I forgot about it. And then the next weekend I was walking by again, and I was like, first I walked by and I was like, go back. So then I was like, hey, is there any way you would be interested in coming on my podcast? And you're like, absolutely. And just like gave me your business card. So I feel like we totally were just like meant to see each other. So, and that sign is so perfect. And so many people could probably relate to that
Yeah.
dream. But so I sort of just referenced it, but you two both previously worked in finance. Maybe take me back to when you were in college. I think you both studied business and you met in college. Also, for the listeners, these two are engaged. And so it's really fun that, a couple is starting a company together or has started a company together. But take me back to college. I guess either one of you feel free to start. But when you're in college, what were your aspirations career wise, or did you know?
Yeah. I mean, we were both in the business school at Indiana where we went IU, both studied finance, and then I did boring accounting also. She did real estate also alongside. So like we were definitely aligned, ended up going different directions to start. She started in consulting. I started in finance and investment banking. So I ended up doing that for about 6 years up until we left. You did the transition from consulting to banking after 2 years and then worked in banking for 4 years. We were both in the investment banking world for half a decade, call it. I worked on the kind of technology side of things within investment banking. We both did a lot of M&A, really just the kind of buy side, sell side deals, but that's the boring stuff. She worked on the consumer group, which was, I mean, you can talk about a much cooler, sexier group than anything I was doing. And you did that in your consulting life too.
Yeah, so I started in management and strategy consulting out of school. I was at Accenture doing that for a little under 2 years. And I think for me, what inspired that change, honestly, like consulting was a little boring to me. I would watch COVID hit and, everybody was working from home. And so I finally got a little bit of a glimpse into what Nolan was doing in banking and just seeing the level of interaction that he had with companies and with management teams. I was like, that's really cool. And I was working with cool companies at Accenture, some of the biggest in the world, but it wasn't that same level of interaction that he had with clients and with the actual like thought leaders of the company. And so I ended up making the transition to banking, which was a little bit of a step back, right? Because I ended up coming in as a first year analyst. So I basically took a 2 year, whatever you want to call it, to make that transition. For me, it was finally doing something that I thought was really interesting. And, I did it for 4 years and I liked it at the time that I was doing it, right? It was a really good learning experience. And then we decided to quit back in June and do this.
And so, yeah, and I think COVID, you mentioned, like, obviously, this is not a hot take. Everyone knows, like, opened so many people's eyes to, like, other things that who they were with in the household that they were,
Yeah.
quarantining with. Like, I know for me, my younger sister works in tech and
Yeah.
I was like watching her get sent like work from home stuff and then all these like what to do when you're like stuck at home, like all these gift packs. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and I was like so stressed. And I was like, is that what it's always like? And I would like listen to her like on Fridays, they'd have like play games together for an hour. I mean, of course, they're actually like doing real great work there. I was like, what in the world? And so you realize, I think when you work in a corporate job, like you really, at least I feel like sometimes I have blinders on to like the opportunities that are out there. I think this isn't what you said, but I know I'm like, you have to remember you're like an at will employee
Yeah.
because
Totally.
sometimes you feel like it's your only option. And then it's like, no, you have other options.
Yeah.
And it's great you had the confidence to switch. And I think, if anyone's listening that's older than what you were at the time, maybe 24 when you switched, you can still do it in your 30s, 40s. And I know it feels like it gets a lot harder as you grow in your
Yeah.
career, but like it is an option. Okay. And you are both in New York, right?
So we actually both started in Chicago after school.
Okay.
We're both from Chicago. So we went back there for 2 years. And
Yeah.
then when COVID hit, shortly after college, for like a year and a half after we graduated, we were both still living in the city.
And I moved to New York when I got my
Yeah, a
job in
year
banking.
after, really kind of a year after, like 2021-ish. Yeah. So been here about 3-4 years at this point. I then moved a few years after that. So I've been here about 3 years. She's been about 4 years.
Awesome. And so, Mackenzie, you alluded to maybe having some like fun clients and you didn't mind it. Like, tell me a little bit about both either of you, like the banking lifestyle. I've had an investment banking person on the podcast. Obviously, there's the reality that it's often very long hours. Like, was that your experience? Take me back to like your most recent last job in investment banking. What were hours like? Where were you at mentally? Like, your mental health, what thoughts were going through your mind during those days?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say when I decided to make that transition from consulting to banking, I was fully aware of the lifestyle change that I was about to make, right? I had seen it firsthand with working from home with him. And so I think for me, it was a decision that I knew before I was even going into it and I was okay with it because I was so excited about the type of work that I was going to be doing and the clients that I was going to be working with. I would say that the first 3 years in the job, for me personally, I got absolutely grinded. I was working 90, 100, 120-hour weeks, like, month after month after month. And so that for me was a lot. I was actually in a different group before I moved over to the consumer group at the bank. And so those first 3 years were really just a big test of how long and how much I could work. And then I moved back into I moved back to the consumer space. And I think for me, that was really what got me more excited about the work because I was finally working with the type of companies that I really enjoyed. And I think for me, there were weeks where the hours were long, but I enjoyed the companies that I was working with. And so it was worth it. I do think there was a point in time where kind of sat down and looked at each other and said, okay, do we still want to keep working the amount of hours that we're working? It was a number of deals that had gone on where, we're making the final funds flow for the business, right? Transactions going to close, who's going to get paid what? And it was like, okay, here the founder is going to get paid X amount of money. And it was like, after a number of those, it was like, okay, what if we tried to do this ourselves? And I think having exposure to some of those elements is really what at least pushed me over the edge for sure.
Really interesting. Thank you. Yeah. How about you, Nolan? What was your
I agree. I agree with everything you said. I mean, obviously, the earlier on you are in your banking career, it's theoretically going to be harder. I mean, it's like different kinds of hard as you move up the so-called ladder. But your first few years, you're just working a lot. You're working hard, and that's what the job is being available and whatnot. So I think I would say same experience my first few years. I think I liked the technology sphere that I was in. I didn't really have an interest in going one direction or the other. So I was okay with the companies I was working with at the time. Also, I liked the people I was working with, and I think that makes a huge difference. Is especially in this job, and I tell a lot of kids I'll meet for coffee or college kids or whatnot, like the biggest thing the biggest thing that keeps people in the job or makes people leave the job is the people you're working around. And I think specifically the people you're working for, because that is where people will be driven out of the job after 2 years or after 4 years or whatever the number is if it's inefficient seniors or people who just keep spinning wheels on things to the extent of like, I just did this 15 times and your worth just feels like it's going down and down and down and your output feels like it's not there. And that's when I think people are like, this is not fun anymore. I'm ready to leave. I think I was
total?
very lucky that I had a most of the time good experience. So it was not to say it was not a lot of work, but it definitely depends on not just what you're doing, but kind of who you're working around too. I always kind of knew, and I think we were aligned in this, that we probably didn't want to do this forever. It was more of like, we also didn't want to run away from it just after 2 years to go to the buy side or go do something else because we were enjoying largely what we were doing. It was just, okay, we're probably not going to do this forever, but we don't want to leave yet. So let's do it a few more years, get as much experience as possible, given we were extremely lucky to be working with the companies we were working with at the firm we were at, getting the experience we were allowed and then eventually making a jump. We didn't know when, but like in the coming years, making a jump to do something, whether it was something of our own or go work for a company, whatever it might be.
That timeline started to get shorter and shorter. I feel like when I started as an analyst, I thought I was going to be a lifelong banker. Like I thought I was going to be, the female MD and everything. And as like year after year, it was like, okay, maybe a little sooner, maybe a little sooner.
That is funny how you bargain with yourself. I even remember I used to be like, I'm gonna work till I'm 30 and make as much as I can and then do my dream job.
You're
And
right.
now I'm like, shoot, I'm 31. Like, don't quite have the savings that I was like hoping
Yeah.
for. So this is a sort of a silly question, but I've always wondered, like my cousin did investment banking. I have friends that have done it. And it is like I hear consistently, it's the hours, it's the grind. Is the work itself, obviously the load of work is extreme, the amount that you need to get done. Is it also hard? Like, are you also confused and like stressed because you don't really get it? Like, and I'm talking analyst level,
It's a
obviously,
good
as
question. No, it's a good question because I think a lot of,
Can I answer this?
yeah, you answer first and yeah.
I would say up until so I would say the majority of my analyst years and my first like year and a half as an associate was effectively the same like sell side buy side process. And it was very like clear cut, very straightforward. It was like, okay, it's my first time doing X, but like once you learned how to do it, you're like, okay, I get it. And so at that point it was essentially the quantity of work that you had to get done in the number of hours. In the last I guess 6 months of me being there, I got staffed on a deal that was like this type of transaction had never been done before. We had no precedence. It was very convoluted. It was like
It was hard. It
it
was
was
like
hard.
I think that's a
And
long way of
and
saying,
that was a mentally challenging deal, but on top of it with the hours that were still required. And I would
yeah.
say that is the deal that pushed me over the edge.
So I think it's like, it depends. There are deals that are a little more cookie cutter per se, where it's like, okay, we're selling another company. We've sold three that are just like it. We're going
Yeah.
to run through the same process. We know who
Yeah.
to call, and that's not to say that as a second year analyst, building a financial model from scratch is easy, but it's like you get to the point when you're around that caliber of people where you've done it enough that you're good at it, like anything. So it becomes easier, but not to say it's necessarily hard. I think there are things depending on the deal, like this one you mentioned. I had a few of those over my years where like it is mentally challenging. Like there are very difficult things, whether it's coming up with some new structure or getting creative on certain things. And I think the other thing too is it does keep you on edge a little bit because as you graduate upward, you stop doing certain tasks and start doing new tasks.
Mhm.
And I think that's where you see some people struggle in the job is you might be the best modeler in the whole company,
Mhm.
but by the time you're an associate or like an associate two, you're now in charge of managing people.
Mhm.
And maybe you're not a good manager. And like that's where the skill sets start to converge. And then you become a VP and you now have to manage people, check over models. You still need to be technical, but now you have to start sourcing your own clients and you have to start going to do BD work. And like
Yeah.
that's why I guess yeah. So I think you get the point. I mean, it's not, I would say to sum it up, hard work will do you better in the job of banking than being the smartest person in the room because it is more often than not just doing what needs to get done.
Mhm.
Yeah, and, like, good, like, disciplined and, like, not letting things slip through the cracks, just, like, being a good it's the same thing, I mean, in real estate that people always say it's not rocket science, but, like,
Yeah.
you're unlikely to create, like, a completely new wheel or way of doing
Right.
something, or else if you do, you're gonna start your own company, like, these processes have been done for many years and been
Yeah.
refined, and I completely agree. We had a conversation, with, some a guest on the podcast who is in or was in consulting, and she was explaining how, like, the tier kind of above your entry level consulting job is super hard. It's like that associate or, even I'm currently like a director. Some companies would consider that like VP level. And like you're managing people and I'm not spreading financials from scratch anymore, but like I have if there's a mistake in them, it's on me.
I will say the smartest bankers out there, I think, are restructuring bankers. Their job is hard. I've done some
Mm,
restructuring deals with those people and they are brilliant.
totally.
I know.
Yeah, it's actually similar in real estate, like structuring multiple like the capital stack of like debt, pref equity, mezz,
Yeah.
like finding, equity. So
Yeah.
it's complex. Okay, so clearly you don't just quit and then have the idea of the protein bar company. When did the early rumblings of like this is something we're interested in and then transition to like we actually want to do this? Like
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so I worked on a deal in the Better for You space last October. So that signed middle of the fall. It closed January, middle of January. And I think that really sparked a lot of these things. One, the reaction that the average consumers had to the deal was really shocking to us. And I think for me, it made me realize the growth that the Better for You movement really has. I think Nolan and I, try to eat very healthy and we eat whole foods a lot, but I think we were just kind of in our own bubble and didn't really see this like broader movement that is going on. And that was a big catalyst for it. The point around the funds flow was also what happened and hit in mid-January. And that is kind of, I would say, the biggest catalyst for us starting to think about it. We weren't sure exactly what we wanted to start in. I was like, maybe we'll do non-toxic lip care or like these other things before we actually landed on an idea that we felt confident in. We started working on it back in January, I would say, at the turn of the year.
The only other thing to add too into like what went into our thinking, if you rewind a little bit pre-October, we went on a trip to Asia for a month in like March of last year. And the biggest thing coming back from that, which even like started our whole food eating, which Mackenzie mentioned, was just how clean they eat over there and how everything is so market driven. There's no freezers, there's barely fridges. It's go to the market for your lunch supplies, go home and cook it. Go to the market for dinner supplies, go home and cook it same day. And we loved that. So I think coming back to the States, it was a little bit of a shock. Like, okay, wow, everything's at the grocery store and it's in freezers and fridges and designed to last as long as possible, as opposed to being as fresh and healthy as possible. And so that's when we kind of started eating clean. Not started eating clean because we were pretty healthy as is, but like started really eating a whole food diet as much as possible.
We started to read ingredient labels
A lot more.
and get a lot more curious about
what we were
what
eating,
the
what we were
additives, what the
putting in.
preservatives are, different things like that.
So that was kind of the start. And then I would say the deal really started to spark more and more thought and see like the business side of it, of what the reaction was from the consumers. And also made us realize that there's not really a health giant out there, I'll call it. Even in the food space, in the overall CPG space, there are plenty of food companies that own 90% of the space, your Cokes, your Pepsis, your Mondelez, your whoever. But you think of health foods, let alone health goods, and we're talking like truly healthy, not like, okay, we have a health arm and we bought whatever healthy company, like someone you can trust and look to, that the consumers of truly healthy products are not upset about when it might get sold to someone. Like there really isn't that out there. So I think that started getting us thinking, okay, maybe there's room for that. And obviously it's a big aspiration, but like maybe that's what we could aspire to be someday, starting with the issue we have, which I guess then turning to how do we actually come up with protein bars. I think all of this Asia trip, deals she worked on, kind of getting back to the office after all this, Christmas, January timeframe of this last year, we really started to realize like we've kind of had this problem for a long time. It just didn't really hit us until this point in time. Of we were always on the go. We would grab for a protein bar or protein shake. And like I think even before Christmas, we would sit at the gym or in the sauna after a workout and look at the nutrition labels and just read these things and say, okay, I keep buying this protein bar or keep buying this protein shake and it's got so much in it. I don't feel good drinking or eating this. Why is there not a protein bar specifically out there that has enough protein, but is also actually natural? Like not even a protein powder, something that is whole food based and gets you what you want to eat and put in your body. And that's when we were like, okay, we might have something here. Like there really was not. We could not find something that was in the middle, and started going down the path. We really decided at like Christmas, let's kind of do it. Let's start going down the path of starting this business.
Yeah, so we did that in January and then we quit in June and launched officially in August.
So cool. Yeah, I've tried so many protein bars. I'm sure everyone listening has. And you're either trading like protein for, you're always like giving something up. Like
Totally.
there's added sugar, and then like my favorite. Like it's funny, like with protein bars and protein powders, sometimes I'm like, well, this actually makes me feel full. And then I'm like, no, I'm just bloated now. I would say Quest bars, which are like probably like some of the most chemically ones. I'm like, I actually feel like that one makes me feel full. So like I'll grab that at an airport, but I'm like, this is pure chemicals. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
Whereas then like an RX bar, I guess this feels like it's okay healthy wise, but it's certainly not going to fill me up. I know a lot of friends that have like over the years, and myself and my siblings, like that have gone to nutritionists and realized you're not getting nearly enough protein as you're supposed to. And so I think people are now like protein obsessed, but as you suggested, there's not that many ways to get it in a whole source on the go, unless you're so amazing about constantly meal prepping and just
carrying around grilled chicken. Exactly.
carrying around chicken. Yeah, like the absolute, which is like, that's not healthy either because you're thinking about meal prepping all the time.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's interesting you say like the bar making you full too, because something and we call ourselves a protein bar, like that's kind of our marketing. That's what we are. But the more and more we've thought about it, we looked at our nutrition facts the other day and we were like, our bar really gives you 10 to 15% of your daily value in every macro on there. Like
Mm,
fats, sugars, like natural sugars, good fats,
Fiber.
fibers, carbs, like it's like 10 to 15% pretty much perfectly in that range, give or take a percentage in every category. And like we're like, maybe we need to be calling this just a nutrient bar, or like a bar that's just overall well-rounded or something. We're thinking through it, but it's not just about protein anymore. And you get good protein from it, but other things are important too, right? And like
totally.
it's totally important that way too.
Yeah, it's like actually, and I've only bought 3 and I'm going to buy more. I loved them and I have been turning to it as like it's like a jack of all trades. Like I had it before a workout, like I had like half before my workout in the morning and then half
Yeah.
after, or like mid-afternoon snack,
Right.
where the
Yeah.
bar, I will say, like feels like you feel like when you grab it, it's gonna scratch the itch. And maybe that is because of what you just said.
Yeah.
It has like everything. Okay. So I think a lot of people listening, and I mentioned this up top, have ideas for companies or have ideas, and then they're like, well, I don't even know where I would start. I've had random invention ideas over the years of things I'd love to create. What was your first step? Did you call someone? Did you know people? Like,
Yes and no. So our first step was pretty much starting for what, and this is definitely not the right first step, but our whole thing was like, let's just start doing something. So around Christmas, we literally just started calling co-packers, like Googled co-packers and started calling them. And for those who don't know, the co-packer is basically like the outsourced manufacturer. We didn't want to buy a bunch of machinery and start doing it ourselves to start. So these are the people that do it for you. They'll make it, package it, ship it to you. And we just started calling them. We're like, hey, we have a protein bar idea. We didn't have a recipe yet. We had nothing. We're like, we have an idea. Can we make like 1,000 bars or 100 bars or something? And they were just laughing. They're like, call back when you have 100,000 bar, like minimum order quantities started coming into play and all these things. So we were definitely going in the wrong order.
We had no recipe.
I don't know in what world we thought, like, let's call a co-packer first when we literally didn't even have a recipe. We had an idea. We knew like generally what the macros we wanted it to be and generally the ingredients, but none of that yet. So we just started kind of doing things. We actually did end up getting to the point where we learned who was not best for us to start. And we did find one that was someone who served kind of the so-called little guy and didn't have a minimum order quantity, was a little more expensive because of that, but somebody we could use, and got to the point then we actually called them first and they pointed us to a food scientist. But this was a few weeks after we started doing it in our kitchen. So like we got home to New York and just started experimenting with things. And that lasted like a week or two. And it was horrible. It was so bad. The bar met our macros. We, at the beginning, thought we wanted it to be like a low sugar bar, given that's what some people are focused on. And then we realized like we're whole food focused. If it's got the same amount of sugar as a banana, like that's totally fine. And scrapped that, called that co-packer back, and that's when they pointed us to the food scientist. So that's then we kind of started that process of formulation, and we're like we knew we needed help with the formulation side of things. And then I think outside of that, we were very focused on our brand and like making sure that we had a good brand, building a website. And we had a good buddy of mine's brother-in-law has an agency out here that we knew was like awesome, like does some really cool stuff, and ended up working with them on our website, really building the branding from scratch. Like literally we met him for coffee January of this year and literally had nothing. Like, we want to make a protein bar. We want it to be a cool brand. Like, here's some ideas. And we gave him more than that, but it was really nothing ground up. They helped us build that. Like, our whole mindset was just do something. And we definitely did not do things in the right order. But at the end of the day, one thing led to another, and one person gives you a recommendation to someone else. And then like the manufacturer ended up, we didn't know where to get ingredients. We're like, what do you mean we need to buy ingredients from suppliers and get you ingredients? And he's like, I'm not going to just pull them out of thin air.
I think something that a lot of people struggle with is like, I have this idea and they spend so much time thinking about it and perfecting it in their mind and like trying to do things at these like small increments, but it's like mostly to themselves. And I think what we realized was that nothing's going to happen unless you start doing things, right? So even though we called the co-packers when we were like 6 months too early, it still got us pointed in the right direction of like, okay, we actually need a formula to go to these people with before we start thinking about it. And I think a lot of times people are afraid to do things the wrong way, but it's better to do things the wrong way than to not do anything at all because it helps point you where you need to go. And so I think that's just the mindset that we've always maintained is that, we had this motivation of like, okay, here's this idea. This is kind of what's going to get us out of banking. Like the quicker we move, the quicker we get to go. And so I think the way that we kind of think about it oftentimes is that if you want to move fast, you need to do rapid prototyping. You need to get things out there. You need to get feedback. You need to just like continually progress because even if you're taking a step backward, it's eventually going to propel you 2 steps forward. And that's really the mindset that we try to maintain.
I love that mindset. And I hired a career coach to help me with the podcast. He's not like a podcast coach, but he just is like thinking of this as a business. And I kept being like, yeah, so before next session, I'm going to like create a list and really organize my thoughts of like all the content I want to, and everything was like me getting organized. And he's like, why don't you just start making the content? Like just go, and because he's like, you're like doing all the prep on your side. But he's like, that's not moving you forward at all. It's not putting you
Yeah.
out in the world. And even I also was doing things like, I think I need to like outsource, I need to do it in a studio. So I'm going to wait till I like find a good studio. And then it was like, you can actually pretty much very easily just do it in your apartment like we're doing right now. As much as I would love to do that down the road, it was like I was creating these barriers for myself. But on that same topic, I also think a very probably critical part that you guys are still probably figuring out, as am I, of like when to outsource and when not to outsource. Because like you quickly probably recognize I'm not a website expert. I should bring in my brother-in-law's friend. I'm also trying to kind of find that fine line of like what will really, like what's very important. Branding, I agree, especially for like a packaged good is like so important. And then your when did you, so maybe as you're already, it sounded like as you're already sort of you referenced trying to get the quicker we go, the quicker we can get out of banking. Like, so like what month are you at where you're like, you see the end in sight?
So that probably didn't come until April, May timeframe, I would say. We started working with the food scientists like end of January, early February, maybe. And we were originally told that that process would be about a 6-week process. That turned into about a 4-month plus project. And so that was kind of what we were setting on. Obviously, our mindset in terms of like what we needed to have done before we quit was like, let's do all of the back end stuff. Like, let's do as much admin stuff as we can because we were very restricted with what we could do outside of our jobs. We couldn't make a dollar officially. So we effectively tried to get it to that point where it was like, okay, I think we're really close. But I would say that end didn't come in sight until like May.
I'd say like early June because there were certain things like we didn't want to order our ingredients completely until we finalized our formula, and our recipe was still in the works. And then we got hit with like we're ready to order. Oh, but this supplier says this ingredient lead time is going to be 16 weeks. So, and then I remember we had to scramble to try and they had a warehouse in like Canada. They're like, oh, we have some here right now, but you have to figure out how to get it over the border customs wise. And we're like, okay, help, like tell us something. Luckily, they just randomly found some of that ingredient. So like it was definitely.
It was a moving target.
A
sure.
target.
And every day, I swear, for like 6 weeks straight, Nolan kept telling me,
we're going to quit in May.
Weeks,
we're going to quit in June.
It's 2 more weeks. And I was like, I feel like we're lying to ourselves. But
But I can't.
Were you doing any sort of, you don't need to get into specifics with like numbers, but planning of like, our savings could take us this far. I don't know if you're making money at the point that you, with the new business, but at the time you quit, but like how much of like budgeting were you guys doing? And like, how are we going to sustain this?
Yeah. I mean, we were definitely, we're bootstrapping, so it's all our savings. I think our original, and this kind of goes into our go-to-market right now, like our original thought, goal, strategy was just build a successful D2C brand and like, don't think about retail. We knew retail was expensive and lower margin and do that for a few years because we know of brands or have worked with brands or have seen brands that are very successful, obviously D2C, and it's more scalable that way, et cetera. And so I think our runway was probably a little bit different until we've started to shift our mindset a little bit, which is more of like an update type thing. Literally over the past few weeks or months, we've started to shift toward retail a little bit more because I think in doing our sample days here in New York and the ones that you came to and saw, like we've gotten so much feedback from people, not even feedback, but the first question everyone asks is, where can I buy you in stores? Right? Like we were maybe just a little ignorant to the fact that people want protein bars on the go. And there are plenty of people, yes, that buy them on Amazon. There's some stat, I think it's like Amazon sells $600 million in protein bars a year, which is crazy. So like people will buy them online, but people want them right now, right in front of me. So we have shifted a little more toward retail, and how this is all related to kind of budgeting and planning is it definitely changes things a little bit of what we're going to need to budget to spend, on certain things versus the other. So it's kind of a moving target. It's
because your budget is like, your budget is shifting because you're pivoting when you're seeing the need. So that's
exactly.
And I also think to your earlier point of like, what do we outsource?
Yeah.
It's like an evolving conversation that we have day after day of like, we literally met somebody this morning to discuss, of like marketing, of like having somebody manage our Amazon storefront and different things like that. And it's just things that we didn't necessarily know how much effort actually went into managing those things. I think we had, again, ignorantly thought a lot of these things we could do ourselves, but it's like at the cost of our own time. And so it's constantly kind of checking ourselves of, okay, we have this much cash. This is how much this is going to cost. Do we think it's going to be a beneficial,
Yeah,
return?
more of that, less of like, here is our set budget, more of what Mackenzie just said of every decision we're making, like, is this the best use of our money? Can we afford it? What's going to be the outcome? Like, what are we foregoing by paying for X, Y, and Z? As opposed to like, we have $10,000 for this year set out for this exact thing. 'Cause I think we're just at the point where it's such a moving target. Like that would be potentially limiting or restricting, and we need to be a little more fluid.
And especially for you all, like you're full throttle, like you've left your full-time job. So it's like, what are we waiting for? Like, let's go at all, fire at
Right.
all cylinders. The time is now. So I think that makes a ton of sense for your specific situation. Okay, so you touched on marketing. What does your day-to-day look like right now? How are you getting the word? Are you spending it getting the word out about the bar? Are you working on new products? If you
Yeah.
sort every day is different, but if you could walk me through like what you're doing in a day.
Well, I think a big thing and like something we're changing here soon is we actually pack all our orders right now. So we fulfill all of them. We have a little warehouse, shared warehouse in Queens that we'll go over to maybe not every day, 4 or 5 days a week, including weekends, probably to pack orders. And when we go over there, I mean, that whole trip takes 4 hours. 4 to 5, 3 to 6 hours, depending on how long we're there. Like that is time we have now decided we need back. So like that's usually a big part of our day and that we're going to be shifting outwards. We're going to be getting those 3 to 6 hours back to be doing things that are a little more high impact. But otherwise, I mean, I think we like to generally think of it as our days kind of 3 blocks, like morning block, afternoon block, evening block. One of those is usually the warehouse. The other two are spent either doing things like this or on calls. And then the other one or time in between is generally kind of executing on tasks we have to actually do.
Yep.
But it
And
does, I mean, the tasks we're actually doing are anything from, they are very wide spanning. It totally depends.
it's
Yeah.
graphics design, or it's figuring out how to get UPC codes, or it's
Talking to suppliers or
Yeah.
potentially, like meeting with people to hire people or bring people on to do things for us and free up more of our time. But there's also just so many things we're not doing that we need to be doing. And that's why we're trying to find the balance of like, what else do we need to potentially be spending money on to hire someone to do something that we're not best suited to do, like email marketing, right? Like we're not experts in that. And if that could be driving more value and we don't need to be doing that, that's time we're saving or working on new products, right? Like no one else is going to do that for us. Like we need to think about it and we have thoughts. We just haven't had time to sit down and put a recipe together and test it out and do all that, or go out and pitch retailers, like, go out and pitch people or organic social media. Like that's something we definitely want to be spending more time on that we are not yet. Like we've done a bit of it and we have someone helping us with the brand side of things, but like we both want to be spending a lot more time on our own social media, promoting the brand and just our own stories to drive organic growth that way.
How much time do you spend going to like health food related like conferences or conventions, like, and setting up a table like you set up in the West Village? Like, is that a big part of your job?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of demo events, I would say. We officially launched at Newtopia, which is a natural foods conference. That was back in August. That was our
Okay.
first and only trade show, like a big trade show that we've been to. But we do the sample days just about every Saturday. We say yes to almost every event that comes our way if we can make it work. So, like last week, we were at Crunch headquarters for an employee like benefits. I don't even know what you would call it.
Fitness event they put on. They have like 300 employees at their headquarters. So we basically demoed with a bunch of other brands, and the participants were the employees. So it was a
Yeah.
cool way to get access to like a bunch of fitness people.
Yeah, but we say yes to just about everything.
Yeah.
I will wrap up here shortly. I know you're engaged, so like wedding is on the horizon, but like what do you spend if you have free time? What do you like to do outside of your business? Or is now a time that you're like, business is everything?
We
Business is everything, I would
business
say.
is like 99%. We recently just got 2 puppies as well on top of all of the other change going on right now.
They're sleeping. They're right next to us here.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing.
But anytime that we are not working on the business, we are just hanging out with them.
And even though you're super busy, you're starting your business, like so far, does it feel like your days are better than they were back in a year ago in investment banking?
Yeah, I
Yes.
feel like a whole new human.
Yeah.
I think it's been a very exciting journey. There's days where it's like, wow, this is really stressful, or there seems to be a lot going on, or there's a lot of decisions to be made, different things like that. But our quote unquote worst days here in doing what we're doing now are still better, in my opinion, than what we were doing in banking. And I find myself constantly reminding us that we could be sitting in an office right now and we are not doing that. And we are, pursuing our passion. And that is what keeps us going, honestly.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's not easy, but it's awesome. You
Yeah.
work for yourself. You set your own schedule. It's a lot of hard work, but we're doing it for ourselves now, which is the biggest thing.
What is it like working with your partner?
Good question.
What are some big takeaways from that experience?
I mean, we never worked together directly. I mean, I think we saw and experienced each other's working styles, just like living together for years. But it definitely was
It was
an
a
adjustment to
Yeah,
figure out how to.
it was a learning curve at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think working in banking, everybody has this kind of alpha personality, and rarely do you have to work with somebody at the same level on a deal, right? You're typically like, oh, I'm the VP and I have people above me and people below me, and you're rarely staffed with like 2 VPs on a deal, for example. And now effectively, like it's, 2 analysts working together or whatever you want to call us,
Yeah.
that I think it was a little bit of a learning curve of like, okay, let's approach this in a not like, oh, I'm going to do all of the work myself. Like this is the 2 of us doing it together. And
Yeah.
so it took a little bit of time, but I think we're in a good groove now.
That's awesome. Please tell everyone where they should find your products.
Yeah. So we can be found on wholehealthclub.com. That's HOL healthclub.com. We will also be launching on Amazon, Walmart, in the coming month or so. Come turn of January, we will be in Pop-Up Grocer in New York City. And then we will also be in a handful of retailers in Colorado and Texas at the start of the year also.
It's amazing. Congratulations. And I saw on your website that you're potentially launching a protein spread soon.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd probably be one of the next products, but one of those things we need to find time to work on.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on the podcast. This was so fun. And hopefully we'll see you guys soon. And if you live in New York, come to the West Village Farmers Market on Saturdays
Yeah.
and check out that's probably the quickest way if you're in Manhattan to
Totally.
get your hands on these bars.
Totally.
Yeah.
Thank you guys again.